Welcome and thank you for joining me for this quiet journey into the past. In this story, we will take a long, gentle walk through medieval Europe. There will be no rush. We will move slowly, pausing often, noticing details, and lingering on the small things that made up ordinary life. Perhaps as you listen, you will feel your eyes grow heavy. Perhaps the slow rhythm of the words will carry you into sleep. That is perfectly fine. The past will still be here when you wake. Before dawn has fully shaken the night from its wings, a faint sound moves across the open field. The slow creak of wood, the soft clink of chains, the low mutter of men coaxing beasts to their task. It is spring, and the plow season has come. The village wakes to soil and sky, for this is the work that will feed them through the year ahead. A medieval farm is it a single neat square of land. It is a patchwork of open fields, long strips divided among families, their borders marked by faint ridges or scattered stones. Beyond lie meadows, woods for fuel and pigs, and the Lord's own demesne where tenants owe labor. In spring the land lies damp from thaw and rain. Mists rise in hollows, blackbirds sing sharp and sweet. The plough itself is a marvel of sturdy simplicity, a heavy wooden frame with an iron coulter to slice the sod and a mold board to turn it. Two long handles allow the ploughman to guide its bite. Chains run to a team of oxen, slow, patient, immensely strong. Wealthier farms may use horses, quicker but costlier to feed. Each beast wears a padded yoke. Bells may jingle softly on collars to warn folk as they pass. Men and boys walk beside, one steadying the plough, another urging beasts with goad or voice. "Ho! Girt up!" called the ploughman, leaning his weight to steer straight furrow. Earth peels back dark and moist, alive with worms. The smell is deep and good, promise of grain to come. Women and children follow, breaking clods with hoes, scattering seed of beans or peas where early planting suits, and singing to keep pie. Before work begins, the field itself is blessed. The priest or sometimes the eldest villager walks its edge, sprinkling holy water, murmuring prayer for fair weather and good yield. Crosses cut in soil mark turning points. Old customs linger too, bits of bread buried at boundary, charms hung to keep birds at bay. Faith and superstition walk hand in hand here. Neither feels strange to those who live by the soil. The day stretches long. Plowing is slow. A man and oxes may cover only an acre in a day, less if ground is heavy with clay or tangled with roots. Mud cakes boots, shoulders ache, but there is rhythm. Step, creak, snort of beasts, slice and turn of earth. Children run errands for water or food, scampering back with baskets of rye bread, cheese, and ale. Dogs nose along furrows, chasing mice. Above, skylarks wheel and pour song. Villagers work together, strips lie side by side, so cousins and neighbors plow in sight of one another, lending hands if a team falters. The poor who own no oxen may borrow or join in shared teams, paying with labor. Women sow behind plows, casting seed in careful arc. Others mend harness or carry fodder. A stuck plow draws laughter and swift help. A broken beam is mended with spare wood kept for just such need. Farming is solitary only in dream. In truth, it is a braid of many lives. The land itself teaches patience. Stones rise with frost, roots tangle, rain may turn clay to sucking mire. Each obstacle is met with muttered prayer or wry curse. Yet there is quiet pride in straight furrows glinting under morning sun. When the plow reaches field's end and turns, men wipe brows, drink from shared flask, and gauge sky for weather. A crow caws, someone jokes it's calling for seed. Work goes on. By midday, families pause for dinner in the field. They sit on turned sod or low banks, unwrap cloth bundles, coarse bread, onions, hard cheese, maybe bit of salted pork or dried herring. Ale or small beer cools thirst. Talk is simple about soil and beasts, gossip of neighbors, news from manor. Laughter rises, mixing with skylark's trill and glee of tethered sheep on meadow edge. Children nap or play while elders stretch weary backs. Then with sighs they return to furrow. Tools are few but precious. Plowshare and coulter kept sharp, hoe handles rubbed smooth, seed bags patched and sturdy. The village smith repairs iron edges when dull or broken. Wheelwright mend carts hauling seed and manure. Each craft supports this season, and each farmer thanks them with coin, labor, or part of harvest come autumn. The whole economy beats to plowing's slow drum. Evening brings weary joy. Last furrow turned, beasts led home to byre and fed nosebags of grain. Men scrape mud from boots and laugh softly at bent backs and blistered hands. Women gather tools and children. Sometimes a small prayer said at field's edge. Sometimes a jest tossed skyward, half thanks, half challenge to fickle weather. Smoke curls from cottages as suppers begin, pottage thick with barley, bread hot from hearth, a mug of ale to soothe sore muscles. Spring plowing is more than task. It is ritual of renewal. After winter's hunger and dark, to break earth is to wake hope. Villagers watch sky close, feel every wind, know that grain planted now will decide whether next February brings plenty or gnawing want. Yet they sing, joke, and keep faith, for they have done this all their lives and their fathers' lives before. Beyond labor, plowing weaves social bond. Shared teams breed trust. Neighbors know one another's strength and need. A widow may see her strip plowed by men of village in quiet charity. An injured farmer may have sons of others walk his furrows. No charter compels this, hunger and human decency do. It is how community survives fickle season. And there is beauty too. Dawn light catches, turns soil in bronze and gold. Rooks follow, snapping worms from furrow's edge. Children chase one another over ridges. Women laugh under kerchiefs bright with dye. Bells from distant church drift on damp air. The smell, sharp, sweet living, is first true scent of spring. When night falls, fields lie newly marked in long, dark lines, silent but full of promise. Stars prick above, a dog barks once and quiets. In cottages, farmers sleep heavy, dreaming perhaps of harvest yellow and full. The plow waits outside under lean-to or in barn, its blade still smeared with black soil, patient for tomorrow's work. So when you think of medieval life, remember but only castle walls or crowded towns. Remember the plow and the spring fields, humble wood and iron guided by calloused hands, oxes slow and sure, earth opening to seed under watch of sky and prayer. Here begins the bread that feeds every hall and hearth. Here begins the year's hope. At last the long hope of the year stands before them. Fields gone gold and heavy, heads of grain bent as if in prayer. The harvest has come. All summer the village watched sky and wind, checked kernels between teeth, counted days since bloom. Now every hand, old and young, is called to the stubble. Dawn finds the lanes already alive with voices, the smell of dew and straw, the soft clatter of tools. The reapers gather with sickles and some with scythes. The sickle is older, a short crescent blade, good for careful cutting near ground, used by women and men alike in tight-knit crews. The scythe, longer and swifter, swings in arcs that lay swathes clean, but it demands strength, rhythm, and a clear strip ahead. A stone hung at the belt keeps edges keen. A whisper of wet grit against metal carries down the furrows like a cricket's song. Teams form at the field's margin. The lord's demesne takes precedence. Tenants owe days here before tending their own strips. The reeve marks out work, checks that boundary stones stand, counts heads. Laughter flashes even now, a joke about last year's crooked ridge, a boast of who cuts straightest, and then the first stalks fall. The air fills with the low rasp of blades through straw, the soft thump of tied sheaves set upright to dry. Cutting follows a steady pattern. Reapers move ahead, slicing in close ranks, their backs shining with sweat by mid-morning. Behind them, binders gather fallen stalks, twist wisps into ropes, and tie sheaves tight enough to stand. Children run between stooks with armfuls of straw for binding, or chase mice flushed from cover, or carry water from a barrel shaded by a cart. Old folk glean in the wake, picking up heads missed by haste, murmuring thanks for each full palm. Songs help the hours pass. Some are work chants measured to the swing of a scythe, some are merry harvest tunes with verses that everyone knows and verses invented on the spot. A line begun in one corner of field is caught up half a furlong away, changed by another crew and sent back with a laugh. The birds answer too, larks and finches greedy for grain, and boys clap and shout to drive them off. Heat rises, shirts are unlaced, kerchiefs tied tighter against hair and dust. The ale break is blessed. A keg tapped at the field edge, cups dipped and passed. Along with ale comes coarse bread, onions, bits of cheese or bacon if a household to spare it. They sit in the scant shade of a hedge or cart, looking out over what has fallen and what remains. Pride pricks them more than hunger. The work behind looks small, the work ahead vast, and yet the day's tie feels friendly now that sweat has begun to pay the year's debts. Harvest is urgent for good reason. A storm can lay whole fields flat, making cutting slow and rotting heads before they dry. Too long a delay, and the grains fall when touched, leaving only empty whiskers. Everyone watches the edge of sky. A cloud bank means quicker hands, shorter breaks, perhaps lanterns later. In some seasons, bells ring from church to call more bodies when weather threatens, and even the priest throws his cloak aside to bind sheaves. Custom keeps order. On the Lord's land, the first sheaf belongs to chapel. It is carried to the altar with a short prayer for the rest to come safely. On tenant strips, neighbor helps neighbor. Debts are remembered but also forgiven in these bright weeks. Widows and the poor have the right of gleaning what the sickle drops or the binder misses. They may gather without shame. Children learn this law as they learn to walk. Greed is frowned upon, but so is grudging. Fields feed all or none. By late day the stubble shimmers, and stooks stand like little huts. Their tied sheaves lean together so rain will run off. The smell of warm straw and sap fills the lanes as carts creak toward barns. Wheels sink in soft places. Oxes snort. Men shoulder sheaves when ruts grow deep. The barn doors yawn, darkness inside swallows the day's brightness and keeps it safe. There the harvest will finish its journey from stalk to bread. When the cutting is done for a strip, another rhythm takes the floor, the threshing. On the barn's packed earth threshing floor, men and women stand in two lines and swing flails, long wooden staves jointed with leather, batten down, beating sheaves until grain spills like startled hail. The sound is like restrained thunder, a measured drumming that sets feet tapping even when backs complain. Dust whirls in sunbeams falling from high slits. The smell is sweet and dry. Chaff clings to hair and lashes. Next comes winnowing. On a windy day or with fans woven of willow when air is still, the mixture of grain and chaff is tossed from baskets. Light husk blows aside. Heavy kernels fall bright into waiting cloths. Children love this work. Laughter rides the chaff like thistledown. Cats prowl, hens dart hopeful for stray grains. By the end of the day, sacks stand full and satisfying, tied stout and labeled by chalk marks or a family sign. From sacks to measure is close step, the Lord's tithe is set aside, the priest's portion taken, rents for mill or manor reckoned. There is pride and there is pinch. Some years the pile answers every levy and still leaves plenty for winter. Other years the little mountain shrinks as dues are met until a mother's brow gathers despite her careful count. The reeve, if he is wise and honest, looks long at such faces and scratches a private note to move a measure from full bin to thin without making noise of it. Much of the grain cannot be eaten yet. It must go to mill to be ground under millstones, patient thunder. Carts roll to the watermill, the wheel splashing like a merry drummer who never tires, or to the windmill, its white sails turning in a sky washed high and blue. The miller weighs toll, mutters at damp that makes flour clump, boasts of how fine his stones grind since he reset them. Women wait talking in small knots, babies at breast, teenagers trading glances, elders telling how it was in the year the river ran dry. From this powder will come porridge, bread, and ale, the village's daily strength. Harvest touches every craft. The cooper's yard is full, new barrels bound for ale and grain. The smith sharpens scythe, mend wheel bands snapped under too much weight. The brewer has soaked malt since Lammas. Soon the brew house will steam like a low cloud, hops and sweetness twining along the lane. In kitchens, ovens heat from dawn, loaves pile on boards, pies stuffed with early apples show up as treats for aching crews. The whole village is one machine, and in harvest it runs loud and smooth. Faith laces the work. At Lammas loaf mass, the first new bread is carried to the altar. The priest blesses it, and a wedge is shared among those who brought the sheaf. Later, near Michaelmas, with most safely in, thanks take on bolder cheer. The churchyard fills with voices, and children carry little posies made of grain heads and flowers to lay before the archangel's image. Superstitions pad alongside, a last patch of standing grain left for the field spirit, so he will not follow them home. A little corn figure woven and hung in the rafters to keep luck through winter. All this work ends in harvest home, the feast that loosens belts and tongues. It is usually held when the Lord's granaries are sealed, and the tenants' barns full enough that sleep comes easy. A cart is decked with greenery, the last sheaf dressed with ribbons or a child's wreath rides high like a small queen. The procession winds from field edge to manor gate, to church porch, to village green, with fiddles, pipes, and drums if they be found, with hands clapping if fat. Laughter bubbles everywhere. Griefs of the year are put away for an evening. Tables groan with harvest dishes, pies heavy with meat or fish, pottages thick with peas, fresh bread whipped out of ovens still fragrant, wheels of cheese, apples and pears piled high, honey cakes, and jugs of ale lined like soldiers. The lord may send a cask of better drink, the steward may turn soft and forgive some petty fine, the reeve may sit on a bench rather than stand like a post. The poor have seats too, their bowls filled first in some villages. Singing rises and swells, old tunes everyone knows, new verses made in mischief, psalms when the priest raises hand. Games sprout like mushrooms. Young men leap sheaves or wrestle on the green. Girls race with pails and spill less than logic says they should. Children roll on straw until they vanish like hedgehogs. An old woman tells fortunes from apple peel. A lad swears the peel spelled his beloved's name, though it looks like a snake to everyone else. Moon hangs fat and approving over it all. Speech follows drink. There are toasts to God, to the saint of the day, to the lord and lady, to the reeve reluctantly, to the midwife who saved 2 births in June, to the old man who taught half the lads to set a straight furrow. Then the floor clears for harvest dances, not elegant pavonets like a rich hall's, but circling runs and claps, stamping patterns that pound dust into stars underfoot. The fiddler saws until his arm shakes. Someone beats a drum so fiercely that geese in pens answer. For a few hours, a village that has labored like ants moves like birds instead. Later, when the lamps burn low, couples slip out to cool air and quiet lanes. The green shows only stray straw and a sleeping dog. In barns, men roll into straw as if the field had come to bed with them. The priest, who has eaten more pie than is prudent, snores faintly in his chair until a child wakes him, giggling. On some years a tale is told, always the same, always new, of the harvest when rain never came, until the women carried the statue of Mary across the field, and a cloud rose like a silver boat. No one knows if it happened here or in the next valley. It happened wherever bread was needed and faith was stubborn. Harvest is also reckoning. After feast, counting resumes how many sacks to sell at the fair, how many to keep, what portion to grind each week. Households measure hope with careful hands. A cottage with many mouths and thin bins plans to stretch porridge with peas. A family lucky with pigs promises to share lard in January when cold gnaws hardest. The widow who gleaned well hides her little bags where damp cannot find them. The reeve makes his rounds, tapping barn doors with his staff, listening to the hollow that tells him which are full. And then comes the quiet after. Fields lie shorn, patterned in pale and brown, hedges full of spider's lace. Plows will cut again for winter sowing, cattle will graze stubble, geese glean what fell. The frantic pace eases to steady chores. In cottages women grind and bake, patch and pickle, dry apples on strings near the hearth. Men mend tools, thatch weak spots, haul faggots from copse. Children crack nuts and learn to knit. The village exhales into shorter days, trusting stacks and bins to hold through dark months. Not every year ends in plenty. There are lean ones when blight blackened barley or storm beat wheat flat, Those feasts were thinner, the songs tighter in the throat, the corn figure hung with more prayers than ribbons. Yet even then there was a feast, for hunger is fought best with company. A thin stew eaten together holds better than a thick one eaten alone, and no year passes without some glint, a child's quick step in the dance, a joke so perfect even the stone-faced reeve grins, a night sky pricked bright as a god's promise over the wagons. If you could stand on a small rise and look down on a harvest day, you would see tie-layered, old men cutting as their fathers did, boys learning the grab of straw on palm, girls binding in neat prow ropes, a dog skittering at birds, a priest smiling under a sun he cannot bless into being, but to thank when it shines. You would hear steel and laughter, feel chaff on skin, taste dust sweet as honey in your mouth. You would understand, perhaps, why e'en the proudest lord bows his head when the first loaf from new grain is set on his board. All the power in walls and iron means little without this gold. So remember the harvest and the feast of plenty when you picture medieval life. Remember the women with strong forearms twisting sheaves, the men with backs like bows under the scythe, the children stooping for a fallen head with glee, the barn drumming with flails, the wind lifting chaff like a blessing, the church door framed by a sheaf tied in ribbon. Remember the night after, when the village sleeps, not from despair but from joy, with bread cooling on boards and moonlight silvering the stubble. From such days the year is made bearable, from such feasts the winter learns it cannot win. High above the tilled strips and smoky cottages where the wind moves freely and the sky feels wide enough to hold every thought, lives the quiet figure of the shepherd. His world is slower than the fields below, yet no less vital. Sheep feed the looms of towns, wool coins pay rents and taxes, and lambs feed Easter tables. Watch them means solitude, but also song, patience, and a weathered sort of wisdom. The day begins early. A faint pale light spills across hills and moors. Dew beads the grass. A cock crows far below in village yard. The shepherd wakes in his low hut or under simple lean-to, sometimes shared with a dog curled tight against the chill. He shakes out cloak thick, oily with lanolin, warding rain and wind, and checks his crook, a long staff with hook for catching stray lamb. Then he whistles soft, his sheepdog, quick-eyed and eager, bounds up, tail flagging. Work begins before sun has clied. Flocks move like slow clouds over green. Sheep graze, heads down, cropping sweet shoots. Bells tinkle softly where ewes wear them. Lambs bounce awkwardly, chasing one another before ducking back to mothers. The shepherd walks easy but watchful, eyes scanning for strays, sick beasts, or trouble on horizon. Trouble can mean many things: a lurking wolf or dog gone wild, a fox at lambing time, thieves from other valleys, or sudden storm. His tools are few: the crook, a sling or staff for scaring predators, a leather bottle for drink, a bag with coarse bread, cheese, maybe dried meat. Some carry flint for fire and a small knife for trimming hooves or cutting tangled wool. The most precious tool is his dog, trained from pup to circle flock, drive them gentle, hold them still when needed. A whistle or low call sends dogs skimming ground like thrown stone, gathering wandering sheep back to safety. Spring is season of lambing, busiest and tenderest time. Ewes heavy with young greys close to huts. Shepherds keep sharp eye, night vigils under stars, listening for low bleed of birth. Many a shepherd helps with slick new lamb, pulling gently, clearing nose, guiding to teat. Each saved life matters, to family, to lord, to village cloth trade. Fires may burn through cold nights, small rings of light on lonely hills where men coax life from damp chill. Azure turns, work shifts. Summer means wide roaming on high pastures where grass is rich and cool breezes keep flies at bay. Shepherd builds temporary folds with hurdles, moving camp as flock needs. Days long, sometimes lonely, songs and pipe tunes help pass time. Simple flutes carved from reed, oaten pipes, or voice echoing across hills. Old ballads, psalms, love songs to distant girls. Birds join in, wind hums through heather. Autumn brings shearing, flocks driven down to pens near village or manor. Men and women gather, laughing and calling as sheep are caught, laid gentle, fleece sliced away in long, smooth strokes, wool rolled and sorted, fine for lord, coarse for local use. Shearing is work, but also festivity, food shared, ale poured, songs lifted. Children chase wool tufts, dogs nap exhausted. For shepherd it is harvest, months of watch turn to tangible wealth. Winter is hardest, hills bare, wind cruel, days short, flocks kept lower, fed hay or stubble, sheltered in folds of stone and thorn. Shepherd walks, wrapped in heavy cloak, face chapped raw. Nights long and lonely by fire's glow, dog pressed close. Wolves come nearest then, so do thieves. Bells and dogs' warning grow vital. Yet winter has its quiet beauty. Snow glitter under moon, warm smell of sheep, huddled safe, stars blazing bright over silent fields. Faith walks with shepherd always. Alone so often he prays aloud to sky or whispers to carved cross hung in hut. Patron saints of shepherds, Cuthbert, Wendelin, watch over flocks. On feast days he may light small candle in hut, sing fragment of hymn remembered from childhood mass. Christmas on hilltop is lonely yet holy. Star-pocked sky, distant bells, sheep breathing warm against frost. Despite solitude, shepherd is it cut off. He comes to village market to sell lambs or wool, bringing news of uplands, weather, strangers, broken bridge, sign of wolves. Children run to greet him. Women buy fleece for spinning. Men ask of grazing rights. He knows boundaries of each meadow and heath better than reeve or lord. His word carries weight in disputes over pasture. Shepherd's life is humble but skilled. He reads sky for storm, grass for health, sheep eyes for fever. He mends hooves, doctors cough, cuts tangled fleece, knows herbs to soothe bloat. Dog and man work as one mind. A whistle sends dogs slicing left, another to right. Sheep bunch and turn like water. It is quiet mastery, unnoticed until lost. Loneliness shapes him. Long hours breed thoughtfulness, songs, sometimes stories whispered to dog or stars. Many shepherds become natural poets, their speech rich with weather and wild. Some are merry, some melancholy. Yet all hold patience. To watch sheep is to learn slow tide, to trust season's wheel. At night, shepherd builds small fire, eats coarse meal, perhaps plays pipe. Dog keeps watch, ears pricked. Owls cry, wind moans in grass. Far below, village lights twinkle. Church bell drifts faintly up. He feels both apart and part, distant yet bound by duty and trade. Sleep comes early, on rough bed of bracken or straw. Stars wheel silently overhead. Sometimes danger breaks peace. A wolf lunges at dusk. Dog leaps. Shepherd shouts and swings staff, flings stone with sling. Thieves creep. Dog's bark brings neighbors or watch. Storm may sweep in sudden driving flock. Shepherd scrambles to lead to shelter, soaked and shivering, but unwilling to lose a single sheep. Such nights test mettle, yet survival breeds pride. Feasts mark year, sheep washing in late spring when flocks driven to stream, men laughing as they wrestle woolly bodies into cold water. Shearing feast in summer with roasted lamb, fresh ale dancing on green. Even solitary shepherd joins, for a while hills empty, song and laughter fill dusk, then back to watch, but lighter hearted. Economy of whole region rests on this quiet life. Wool is England's treasure, Flanders loom food, French wealth. A shepherd with good flock means trade humming, taxes paid, bread on table. Lords know it, towns know it, yet shepherds stay simple, cloak smelling of lanolin, eyes full of horizon. When you picture medieval land, do not see only plow and sower. Look higher, where shepherd and dog move among heather and rock, where bells tinkle and lambs bleat, where one man's long patience clothes half the town below. It is a life of weathered hands and clear sky, of danger met quietly, of songs sung to stars. So the year turns, lambing to shearing, summer pasture to winter fold. The shepherd remains steadfast, unseen yet essential. His work weaves into bread and cloth alike, into hearth warmth and market wealth. His lonely hill is part of everyone's home. Before the plow turned soil and the bell called to prayer, Europe was clothed in forest. Even in the Middle Ages, when fields and villages had begun to spread, great woods still stretched for days of travel. To step beyond the last hedgerow and into those trees was to leave the measured world of man for one older and less certain. Here light dimmed, sense deepened, and time itself seemed to slow. The deep forest was pantry, pasture, refuge, and threat all at once. A villager entering at dawn feels the change first in sound. Birds riot overhead, thrush, blackbird, woodpecker, but human noise fades quickly. The steady creak of cart or chatter of companions is swallowed by leaf and moss. Boots sink in damp loam, sunlight splinters into green and gold shafts, broken by branches. The smell is rich, leaf mold, resin, wild garlic, wet bark. Somewhere water trickles unseen. People came to these woods for many reasons. The poor gathered firewood, mushrooms, berries, and nuts. In autumn, whole families filled baskets with acorns to fatten pigs. Swineherds watched herds rooting and grunting under beech and oak. Women cut birch for brooms, hazel for wattle fences, herbs for healing. Men felled timber for beams or shaped poles for carts. Resin and pitch, charcoal and potash, the forest fed craft as well as hearth. Hunting belonged mostly to lords, yet common folk snared rabbits, set traps for birds, or fished shaded streams. Deer, boar, and stag were jealously guarded game. Poaching could bring cruel punishment, but hunger sometimes dared it. Stories tell of secret hunts under moonlight, of clever peasants outwitting keepers, and of harsh gallows when caught. Still, the forest teemed with life, red squirrel leaping branch to branch, fox slipping through undergrowth, wolves loping in hungry winter packs. Timber cutters worked in groups, axes ringing with dull rhythm. They camped in clearings, fires smoking, bread toasting on sticks. Logs were dragged by oxen or floated down rivers when thaw came. Charcoal burners tended slow, smoldering mounds for days, sleeping in huts black with soot. Such men were half feared, solitary, smoke-stained, said to know secrets of fire and shadow. Travelers crossed woods warily. Roads were few and often no more than muddy tracks. Wayfarers prayed at roadside shrines or carved signs into trees to mark safe passage. Bandits haunted thickets, robbing merchants and pilgrims. Wolves followed scent of pack animals. Spirits, too, were said to dwell here, green men, will-o'-wisps, fairies who lured astray. Mothers warned children not to wander, and grown men sang hymns aloud to keep courage. Yet the forest also sheltered. Outlaws and rebels hid among oaks, moving camp each night. Hermits built chapels beside springs and lived on nuts and prayer. In time of war, peasants fled with families and animals into thickets where mounted soldiers could not follow. Lovers sought secret bowers. Witches or wise women gathered herbs in quiet glades. Religion walked here too. Monks sometimes cleared patches for lonely cells. Pilgrims sought miraculous springs or holy trees hung with rags and offerings. Processions blessed edges of woodland at Rogation tide, asking protection for crops. Bells might be rung to drive back wolves or darker things, yet shrines often mixed Christian saint with older forest magic, Saint Hubert over boar hunt, Saint Christopher at ford. Season shapes forest life sharply. In spring wild garlic carpets floor, birds sing deafening chorus, streams burst with meltwater. Summer brings dense green, deep shade and buzzing flies. Charcoal burners and swineherds thrive. Autumn blazes gold and russet. Pigs feed, hunters ride, gatherers haul nuts and berries. Winter is hushed and deadly. Snow crunches, branches crack under ice. Wolves prowl roads. Each turn of year writes new chapter. Light changes mood hourly. Morning mist curls silver through trunks. Noon burns high, but only thin stripes reach mossy floor. Evening turns paths to gold. Night is different world. Owls cry, trees creak. Unseen feet rustle. Torches throw tiny islands of light. Stars vanish under canopy. Travelers hurry to find clearing or hut before full dark. For children, forest is school of wonder and fear. They know where to find berries, which plants sting, how to read deer tracks. They also know tales told at hearth, witches weaving charms, ghost huntsmen chasing souls, saints saving lost wanderers. Every mossy rock and twisted root holds story. Economy threads through this green world. Lords issue rights to cut wood or pasture pigs, called pannage for fees. Villages guard their rights fiercely. Guilds of coopers, bowyers, cartwrights rely on certain trees. Ash for shafts, yew for bows, oak for barrels. Smugglers may haul contraband salt or wool along hidden rides. Even kings count forests as treasure, guarding them with foresters and harsh law. Despite dangers, forest life has quiet beauty. Charcoalers at dusk share bread beside glowing mound. Swineherds whistle to pigs under ancient oaks. Herb gatherers hum as they fill aprons with thyme and wild sage. Travelers pause at clear stream to drink cold water cupped in hands. Birds flash bright among branches, and soft moss cushions weary feet. Many villages kept a woodward or forester responsible for watching rights, stopping theft, and sometimes guiding safe paths. These men knew every hollow and spring, every lair and shortcut. To walk with them was to feel safe. To anger them risked fine or worse. They appear often in local lore as both stern and kindly, guardians of balance between need and trespass. When storms come, the forest roars alive. Wind howls, trees crash, animals scatter. Lightning strikes, ignite dry undergrowth. Such nights remind humans how small they are. Afterward, the air smells sharp and clean. New gaps open where light spills in. Timber cutters rejoice at fallen trunks. Gatherers find mushrooms sprouting after rain. Yet peace returns quickly. Sunlight streams on fern and foxglove. Birds resume song, and paths seem welcoming again. For centuries, people have stepped into these woods, taken what they need, feared and loved them in equal measure. So imagine the Middle Ages, not only in villages and castles, but here, under high green roof, damp earth cool beneath boots, scent of pine and beech, distant creak of a charcoal burner's hut. The deep forest is both border and home, danger and refuge, the ancient breathing heart beside every field. When fields end and forest shadows thin, the land often opens into a gentler space, a green sunlit meadow threaded with a slow river. Here the life of the medieval countryside finds its softer face. Work continues, but without the strain of plowing heavy clay or felling great oaks. Children run barefoot, animals graze, and families pause from toil to gather herbs, wash linen, or fish for supper. The dawn begins with silver dew and mist lying low among the grasses. Cows are led to graze, their bells clanking softly. Sheep nibble close to ground while a boy with crook keeps lazy watch, whittling a stick or playing simple flute. Bees hum between wildflowers, buttercup, clover, oxeye daisy. The air smells of damp hay and cool water. A mother arrives with basket for early herbs, yarrow for fevers, mint for drink, plantain for cuts. She tucks gathered greens into apron and hums as she works. By mid-morning, the meadow is alive with quiet industry. Women spread linen on grass after washing it in the shallows. They kneel at water's edge, beating cloth with smooth stones or wooden paddles, laughing and calling gossip across ripples. Children splash nearby, squealing at cold. Older ones catch tiny fish or gather snails. Men may be cutting hay with scythes, their long strokes rhythmic, metal singing through stems. Behind them, hayrakes follow, turning cut grass to dry. The river is both tool and friend. Its water turns mill wheels farther downstream, but here it serves more homely needs, washing, drinking for animals, soaking willow rods to make them pliant for basket weaving. Fishermen cast simple lines or nets, boys set wicker traps for eels. Elders watch floats with patient eyes. A good catch means stew for supper or trade at market. Animals thread through scene. Geese waddle to drink, honking and flapping at stray dogs. Horses stand knee-deep in cool shallows to drink and swish tails at flies. Cats prowl grass for mice. Shepherd's dog dozes but rouses at any stray lamb. Swallows swoop low, skimming insects from water surface. Life here is quieter than deep field or wild wood, but never still. In summer, haymaking dominates. Whole families work together, scything, raking, piling fragrant heaps. Songs rise to keep rhythm and lighten back-breaking labor. Children jump on mounds, scattering seeds. Older folk shake heads but smile. When clouds threaten, everyone hurries to gather hay before rain spoils it, carts creaking as they trundle loads to barns. Afterward, workers drink cool water or thin ale by riverbank, boots off, toes in stream. Spring brings flowers and early grazing. Autumn fills baskets with wild apples, slowers, and late mushrooms. In winter, meadow quiets, frost whitening stalks. Only hardy shepherds or children sledding break silence. The river may freeze shallow edges, leaving center dark and swift. Then washing moves indoors, and meadow waits beneath pale sky. The river has moods. In gentle weather it sparkles, murmuring over stones, inviting play and washing. After storms it swells brown and fierce, sweeping branches and sometimes livestock away. Villagers keep wary respect, tying boats or simple rafts, teaching children to avoid deep pools. Flood the ruined hayfields and soak stored wood, so prayers and charms guard against it. Spiritual life threads here too. Shrines to St. John or local patron may stand by ford or bridge, hung with rags and offerings. Rogation processions bless meadows and waters, asking fertility and safety. Some believe river spirits demand courtesy, a coin tossed before first crossing in spring, a whispered thanks when washing last cloth. The meadow is also a place of play and courtship. Young men race horses or wrestle on grass. Girls gather daisies into chains. Lovers steal away behind willows to talk softly. Feast days spill music and dancing here. After Mass, fiddles strike tunes while villagers picnic, drink ale, and laugh under summer sky. Yet work returns always. At dusk, shepherd gathers flock. Women lift dry linen into baskets. Fishermen coil lines. Children reluctantly leave play. Hay is carted to barns, goats driven home. The meadow empties except for night birds and soft ripple of stream. Bats flit. Frogs begin low chorus. Stars appear. A quiet beauty hangs after dark. Lanterns of late washers glow like fireflies. Someone hums while leading cow home. Firelight flickers from distant cottages. River reflects moon and drags slow mist across fields. Safe yet alive, the meadow at night is gentle counterpoint to deep haunted forest. Economy depends on these spaces. Hay feeds cattle through winter. Herbs heal and flavor food. Fish supplement poor diets. Laundry done here frees houses from damp smoke. Children learn skills while playing. Travelers stop to water horses and rest. The meadow and riverbank weave village survival quietly day by day. Legends linger, softer than forest tales. Maidens turn to willows for lost love, saints who blessed springs, ghost lights dancing on midsummer nights. Elders recount them while hay dries or nets are mended, laughter and shivers mixed. These stories make landscape alive and protective rather than fearful. So when imagining medieval life, look beyond castle and church to this gentle borderland, long grass bending in breeze, river sliding under willows, families working and resting, children playing with dogs. The meadow and the riverbank hold everyday magic, quiet, sustaining, and deeply human. Step outside the smoky warmth of a medieval kitchen, and you meet a space as vital as the hearth itself, the cottage garden. Modest in size, fenced with woven willow or rough stone, it was not a place of idle beauty but of life and survival. Here grew the greens for the pot, the herbs for healing, the dye plants for cloth, and the flowers that whispered both faith and hope. Most peasant gardens lay close to house, safe from wandering animals. A low wattle fence kept out geese and pigs. Sometimes hawthorn hedge or simple ditch marked boundary. Inside, soil turned dark from years of compost and ash, beds raised or edged with stones, narrow paths trodden by bare or booted feet. A few fruit trees leaned over, apple, pear, or plum, and bees hummed among blossoms. Work began as soon as earth softened in spring. Household gathered with spade or fork, children fetched water, women planned plots. Crops were practical, cabbage and kale hardy through cold, onions, leeks, garlic for flavor and strength, beans and peas climbing poles, turnips and parsnips fattening below ground. In warmer corners, lettuce or spinach for quick early greens, herbs lined edges, sage, thyme, parsley, dill, savory, and fennel waving feathery in breeze. The garden was medicine chest too, yarrow for wounds, mint for stomachs, valerian to soothe sleep, feverfew for headaches. Wise women knew when to harvest, morning for mint's sharp oil, noon for chamomile's calm. Flowers like marigold brightened pottage but also healed skin. Roses offered hips for winter syrup rich in strength. Even weeds held uses. Nettles cooked as spring tonic, plantain to cool bites. Color came not from wealth, but necessity. Woad grew blue for dyeing homespun, madder gave red roots, weld offered yellow. Women cut and steeped these to tint yarn, flax sometimes grew for linen, tall stalks rippling, nothing planted without purpose, though beauty often followed purpose. Chickens scratched nearby. A goat might graze tethered at manure. Compost heaps steamed gently. Straw, kitchen scraps, and droppings rotting into soil food. Rain barrels caught roof runoff in drought. Buckets hauled from well. Watering done by hand, slow and precious. Seasons guided every act. Spring sowing and first harvest of herbs, quick salads of young leaves. Summer abundance, weeding, staking beans, drying and hanging herbs under eaves. Autumn, storing cabbages buried in cool pits, onions braided and hung, apples packed in straw, herbs tied in bunches near hearth. Winter, gardens slept under frost, but still gave leeks, kale, and buried roots. Children played and worked here alike. They chased butterflies, scared birds, fetched snails to feed chickens, learned plant names by mother's side. Old men told tales leaning on spades. Neighbors paused to share seed or news. A garden was small but social, a quiet commons of knowledge and help. Faith watched over beds, crosses or saint images sometimes tucked in corners, holy water sprinkled at planting, prayers whispered for rain or sun. On certain feast days, herbs blessed and hung to protect home from lightning or sickness. The garden felt both earthly and sacred, a place where God's gifts and human toil met. Pests and challenge were constant. Geese broke fences, rabbits tunneled, insects chewed tender leaves, drought withered seedlings, too much rain rotted roots. Yet resilience marked gardeners, sow again, mulch with straw, try new patch next year. Seed saving was treasure. Families traded beans or kale seeds across generations. Not all gardens were poor. Wealthier homesteads or monastic granges had ordered plots with box hedges, fountains, and exotic herbs. But being there, work smelled of earth and sweat. Hands dirtied the same way. Monks wrote herbals cataloging plants. Peasant women held lore just as deep though unwritten. The garden touched every meal. Morning pottage spiced with parsley and thyme, stews thickened with beans and onions, cabbages stewed with bacon, salads of herbs on feast days. Healing teas came from dried mint and sage, salves from marigold and beeswax. Dye kettles turned yarn brilliant for winter weaving. In evenings, when work done, garden rested. Sun set behind hedge, bees quieted, and smell of warm earth lingered. Parents sat on bench, child in lap, watching hens settle. Lantern or rushlight might glow by door, but stars gave truer light. All day's food and medicine whispered out there, waiting for tomorrow. Festivals marked garden too. Mayday crowned with flowers, midsummer fires blessed herbs, harvest feasts thanked for cabbages and apples. Families gave first fruits to church or poor, believing generosity kept soil kind. Though humble, the cottage garden was quiet power. It made poor less hungry, sick less helpless, cloth more colorful, and lives more rooted. Each seed sown was act of faith against winter's lean. Each herb cut bound family to centuries of tradition. So when you picture medieval life, do not forget the small fenced patch, buzzing with bees, green with cabbage and sage, alive with hands working slow magic of growth. Here survival and simple joy grew side by side, season after season. Outside, night has come early. Snow lies deep on thatched roofs, and wind rattles shutters with long, low sighs. Inside the cottage, the hearth glows, red logs stacked over steady coals, iron pot hung from the crane, warmth spreading to every corner. After a day of cold fields mending or wood cutting, the family gathers for their winter supper, the simplest of meals, yet rich with comfort and shared life. The room is single and low, smoke-stained but warm. Rough beams overhead hang with drying herbs, apples strung in garlands, and slabs of bacon curing in cool draughts. Clay floor swept, rushes fresh with herbs for scent. By the fire stands long wooden table, well scrubbed but scarred with years of knives and bread loaves. Benches line its sides. A high-backed chair for the eldest or head of house faces hearth. Before meal begins, someone tends fire, a boy stirring embers, or the mother laying another log. Sparks flare and shadows dance on walls. Kettles sing softly, steam curling fragrant with onions, cabbage, and smoked pork. The smell fills room long before bowls appear, stirring hunger and easing the day's weariness. Cooking in winter follows the season's limits. Fresh greens are few, cabbages from pit, dried peas, beans, stored onions, and garlic form base of stew. Bits of bacon or ham bone add strength. Sometimes dried mushrooms from autumn woods give dark flavor. Bread baked days before lies ready, hard crust softened by fire's warmth. If family lucky, a crock of butter or cheese waits. If wealthier, a jug of ale or thin wine stands near. Children play near warmth, while food simmers quiet games with wooden dolls or carved animals, or just staring into flames, drowsy. Older ones help, slicing bread, fetching water from barrel kept indoors so it will not freeze. Conversation drifts, talk of weather, hopes for next market, tales of saints or family lore. Sometimes neighbors or kin join. Winter nights can be lonely. A guest brightens room. They stamp snow from boots, hang cloaks by fire, offer news of village or road. Stories swell louder, punctuated by crack of wood and bubbling of pot. Hospitality matters even when food plain. Sharing warmth and drink is holy and human. Finally, stew is ready. The mother or cook ladles into wooden bowls. Father carves extra meat if any saved. Each receives share not equal, but fair. Elders and workers need strength. Children get smaller bowls but extra bread. Before eating, a brief prayer thanks God for food and safe shelter. Candles or rushlights glow, their small flames doubled in eyes around table. Eating is slow and companionable. Spoons scrape wood, bread soaks broth, steam fogs faces. Conversation pauses for warmth of mouthfuls, then resumes plans for tomorrow's chores, weaving, repairs, maybe small gossip about Lord Steward or neighbor's new pig. Outside wind moans but seems far away. If it is feast season, Christmas, Epiphany, supper brightens. Perhaps a small roast, spiced cakes, or honeyed apples appear. Candles multiply, carols sung softly. Children receive nuts or dried fruit, treasured treats. Even poor families save something special for these holy nights, believing joy invites blessing. Light and shadow weave quietly. Fire throws dancing images on beams. Saints, medals, drying herbs, tools stacked ready. Cats purr at edge of warmth. Dog sighs asleep by door. Crackle and pop of logs join hum of talk. Time seems to slow, held safe within thick walls and long tradition. After bowls emptied, chores resume briefly, dishes rinsed with hot water, ash and sand scrubbing, scraps tossed to animals, pot hung aside for morning porridge, fire banked low but left glowing, vital spark for dawn. Children tucked on pallets near warmth, wrapped in wool or straw-filled mattress. Elders linger a little longer, telling one last tale or prayer. Sometimes evenings bring small craft. Father mends harness, mother spins wool, older boy whittles spoon. Music may come if lute or pipe owned. More often a voice lifts in song, gentle and slow. Stories of saints, heroes, or long-gone kin circle the hearth, teaching and entertaining. Beyond door, darkness deep and cold. Snow falls on silent lane, muffling world. Wolves may howl distant. Church bell may sound hour. But inside is warmth. Bread-filled bellies, shared company. It is a small fortress against winter, humble yet strong. Such suppers repeated night after night built quiet survival, no grand banquets, no music of minstrels, yet these meals nourished Europe as surely as any feast. They taught thrift, patience, sharing. They wrapped families in heat and light while cold pressed close. So when you think of medieval home, picture not only toil and hunger, but also this winter supper by the hearth. Slow stew, sturdy bread, lamplight and laughter softened by tired joy. It is a scene of ordinary grace, warming body and soul through the long, dark season. Before the first hint of color touches the eastern sky, the village is already stirring. Somewhere in the dark a cock crows once, then again, and dogs answer with a sleepy bark. The smell of damp earth and wood smoke clings to the narrow lanes. Thatched roofs loom as quiet shapes against the stars. In a small timber cottage, a farmer slides from his straw bed, careful not to wake the youngest child curled beside the hearth. He pulls on rough wool and steps into the chill. The door creaks, dew sparkles on the grass, and the first breath of morning carries smoke from distant baking ovens. Villages in the Middle Ages wake early because daylight is precious. By dawn, the well yard fills with muffled voices as women and older children fetch water. Buckets squeak on their ropes, cold drops splash bare toes, chickens flutter and cluck when coops are opened, geese hiss and flap their wings. A sleepy cow lows from the byre, waiting to be milked. From cottage chimneys, thin trails of smoke begin to rise, each fire coaxed back from last night's embers. The faint cracker and sudden glow of flame signal the day's start. Inside one house, a mother kneels by hearth, stirring coals to life. She sets an iron pot of barley gruel to warm, sprinkles salt, maybe a knob of butter if they have it. A child rubs eyes and feeds kindling under pot. Bread from yesterday waits on a shelf, hard but filling. The family eats quickly. The men and older boys must be in fields as soon as light is strong enough to see the furrows. The fields to find the village rhythm. By dawn's full break, farmers shoulder hoes, lead oxes from sheds, and walk to their strips in the open field system. Long, narrow plots side by side, each family's marked by stones or simple posts. The air smells of fresh soil and spring grass. In winter it smells of cold mud and manure, in summer of dust and warm hay. Birds wheel overhead and the steady creak of wooden plows begins to echo. Not everyone works the soil. Along one lane a blacksmith rekindles his forge, bellows sighing as coals glow orange. The ring of hammer on anvil will soon spread through the morning, a sound as familiar as birdsong. A carpenter sharpens plane blades outside his shop, sweeping yesterday's curls of oak and ash into neat piles. Women spin wool on doorsteps, fingers quick despite chill. A potter checks drying vessels stacked under shed roof. Each trade awakens quietly but steadily. Children have their tasks. The smallest mine geese or gather sticks for fire. Older ones lead pigs to forest edge for rooting, bells jingling softly at their necks. Some scatter grain for chickens, others sweep thresholds. Laughter and shouts mix with bleats and clucks. Even play is threaded with chores. On market days, children may run messages or help carry goods to square. Morning is also time for gossip and small news. At the well, women talk of weather vital to planting, and of births, betrothals, or small disputes. Who is ill, who is traveling, whose cow broke fence, all pass from lip to lip with easy familiarity. A passing peddler adds spice of distant rumor, war far away, prices rising, a new saint's miracle. Such talk knits the community, sharing worry and hope alike. Religion folds naturally into morning. Church bells may sound for prime, the first office of day. Those who can slip away, often women, old men, or children, cross the dew-damp green to pray. A priest or monk might bless fields in planting season, sprinkling holy water while farmers bow their heads. Charms against blight or hail may hang on cottage doors, prayers whispered before the plow bites soil. Tradesmen sometimes travel with the dawn, a tinker trundles cart rattling with pots, a shepherd drives flock toward duckland grazing, woodcutters disappear into forest with axes on shoulders, messengers and merchants on horseback clatter through, stopping perhaps for a mug of small ale before pushing on. Roads are lively at first light. Daylight is safety. By mid-morning the village hums. Smoke thickens from hearths as bread bakes. Cheese softens near fire, and herbs dry in doorways. Bees stir in skeps. Dogs laze where sun strikes. Children's shrieks echo from pasture. Someone mend a net or roof. The rhythm is it frantic but full. Each person knows task and season. Centuries have worn the pattern smooth. The sounds define the mood. Bells for work or mass, the forge's steady clang, roosters lowing, cattle creak of cart wheels, a distant dog, smells too damp hay, warm bread, wood smoke, animal dung, new earth. For a traveler passing through, that sensory weave says life more than banners or battles. Season changes bring subtle shifts. In spring, fields burst green, lambs bleat, planting fills every hour. In summer, long light stretches day, hay cutting and grain tending dominate, sweat and laughter mingling. In autumn, harvest drives all, scythe flashing, wagons piled high, prayers said for safe storage. In winter, mornings are slower, smoke thick, chores indoors, spinning, mending, curing meat, telling stories by fire. Yet even then animals need care and wood must be cut. No day is idle. Occasionally the routine breaks. A traveling noble might pass, causing rush to line road and watch, or a herald arrive with news of taxes or war. A fair day changes everything. Merchants, jugglers, and pilgrims fill lanes, music plays, and children dart wide-eyed among stalls. But on ordinary mornings, life holds to its simple, enduring pattern. After hours of work, villagers pause for small mid-morning meal, bread, cheese, ale. Men wipe brows and rest on plow handles. Women break from spinning to nurse baby or chat. Children nibble and tumble in grass. Then all return to tasks, for daylight is short in northern climes and every hour matters. The village morning ends with sun high and sweat on brows, but also with quiet satisfaction. Fields turned, animals fed, wares begun, hearths alive. It is unglamorous, rarely sung in chronicles, yet it feeds the world and gives shape to countless lives. So when you picture medieval life, imagine this dawn mist, cocks crowing, buckets clanking at wells, slow waking of trades, and wide fields stirring under pale sky. It is a tapestry of small, enduring labors, the humble heartbeat of a village morning. By the time the first sunlight warms the thatched roofs, the quiet lanes of the village are no longer still. From every direction come the sounds of wheels on rutted earth and the shuffle of hooves. Peasants trudge beside small carts stacked with onions, apples, woven baskets, and earthenware jugs. Shepherd boys urge reluctant sheep along. Women balance baskets on their hips, the weight heavy but familiar. It is market day, and the whole countryside seems to be walking toward the heart of the settlement, the wide, open market square. The square itself is little more than a packed earth space, bordered by timbered houses and a few shops, yet on this day it feels like the center of the world. Flags or simple cloth banners may hang from windows. Sometimes the Lord Steward has raised a painted pole to mark the market's authority and protection. Early arrivals set up rough stalls, boards on barrels, blankets spread on ground, carts tipped to show wares. Smells mingle, new bread, hay, drying fish, leather, damp wool. Merchants from nearby towns or even far cities arrive on horseback or in wagons. A cloth seller unrolls bolts dyed deep blue or russet. A potter stacks glazed jugs so their colors gleam in morning light. A traveling spice dealer arranges tiny packets of pepper, cinnamon, and saffron for those who can afford their luxury. A few foreign traders appear now and then, their accents strange, their wares exotic. Fine silk ribbons, bright beads, salt from distant coasts. Children stare wide-eyed at such wonders. The market bell rings, sometimes a church bell, sometimes one hung only for this purpose. Its deep note carries across fields, telling stragglers to hurry if they wish to sell early and well. By mid-morning the square is alive. Voices rise and fall, greetings, arguments over price, jokes and gossip. Dogs dart underfoot, scavenging dropped scraps. Geese honk indignantly as they are tied by the leg to stalls. Horses stamp, annoyed at noise and crowd. Food fills the air. Bakers arrive with fresh loaves still warm, crust crackling. A brewer sells jugs of small ale. A vintner offers thin local wine. Cheese sellers cut samples with wire, offering sharp or creamy tastes to tempt buyers. Butchers hang rabbits, chickens, or a quartered pig from wooden frame. Their knives flash as they cut to order. The smell is rich and not always pleasant, yet part of the day's texture. Many villagers come less to buy than to trade. Eggs for salt, flax for cheese, wool for iron nails. Barter thrives where coin is scarce. Deals are struck with handclasp and word alone. Trust runs deep in small communities. Yet merchants from away insist on silver pennies or larger coins, clinking, carefully weighed and tested by biting or ringing on table. Some buyers carry tiny scales to check the worth of gold leaf or spices. The market is also social theater. Friends meet after weeks apart. Cousins gossip while fingering cloth. Young men and women steal glances across baskets of apples. News travels faster here than anywhere. A minstrel sings of last year's war or a saint's miracle. A herald posts edict from lord about taxes or musters. Rumors of famine, plague, or strange beasts cross lips in excited whispers. For many, market day is their only window to a wider world. Children revel in sights and sounds. They chase chickens, beg for honey cakes, or stare at puppet shows set up in corners. A traveling juggler tosses bright balls. A dancing bear plods with chain rattling, and a fiddler plays reels that set feet tapping. The square smells of roasting nuts, sweetmeats, and warm hay. Laughter mixes with braying donkeys and clamor of bells. Authorities watch over all. The Lord's steward or bailiff patrols with guards to keep order, collects stall fees, and settle disputes. Scales are checked to prevent cheating, weights inspected. Sometimes a thief is caught and punished on the spot, perhaps tied to pillory by market cross as lesson to all. Yet most days pass with only stern words and small fines. Order matters. Trade depends on safety. Some markets host special fairs, larger gatherings sanctioned by royal or papal charter. Then the square swells beyond imagining. Tents, banners, distant merchants with camels or exotic animals, whole streets lined with wares. Days turn to week-long celebration with music, tournaments, and pageants. For humble villages, these fairs are wonder and chaos, a glimpse of far-off lands and rich goods they may never afford but love to see. Market day shifts with the seasons. In spring, stalls overflow with early greens, lambs, young pigs, and wool from first shearing. Summer brings grain in sacks, fresh fruit, honey, and bright linen. Autumn is richest, apples, nuts, smoked hams, full fleeces, barrels of cider. Winter markets are quieter but smell of evergreen and roasting chestnuts. Merchants hawk candles, woolen mitts, and salted fish to last the cold months. Guilds use market to assert power. The bakers might march early to set price of bread. Weavers display their best. Butchers guard right to slaughter within town. Apprentices run errands and learn crafts' proud presence. Guild banners flutter if a feast day coincides, and masters boast quietly of work's quality. Spiritual life is close by. A church often stands just off the square. Bells call to midday mass or angelus. Pilgrims may sell badges or offer prayers for coins. Friars preach from corners, reminding shoppers of charity and salvation amid trade. Some buyers drop coins in poor box after bargaining hard, a small salve for conscience. By late afternoon, the buses slows. Bread is sold, meat gone, spices packed away. Merchants tally coins, farmers load unsold goods back onto carts. Dogs scavenge bones, children grow sleepy, and gossip winds down. A few travelers linger to drink ale and sing before heading out. Slowly the square empties until only scraps of straw and trampled mud remain, smelling of animals and spilled ale. Even in quiet, the market square feels changed. It has pulsed with life, drawn distant worlds into one place, and stitched the village more tightly to trade routes and news. Tomorrow it will return to open space for carts or children's games, but memory of voices and colors lingers. So when you picture medieval daily life, see this bustling heart, stalls bright with cloth and apples, traders calling, minstrels singing, gossip flowing like ale. The market square, is it just commerce? It is meeting place, news hall, stage of joy and survival. The first light of dawn spills across the town's roofs, touching banners that hang limp in the early stillness. Everywhere there are signs of preparation, garlands looped from window to window, ribbons tied to door handles, and wooden stalls waiting empty along the square. It is festival day, and though the sun has barely risen, the air already hums with quiet expectation. Smoke curls from hearths as families ready early meals, and somewhere a drum beats once, twice, to wake the sleeping streets. Children are first to appear, running ahead of their parents with eyes wide and voices bright. They point to the bright pennants that have sprung overnight, to the long tables being carried from the guild hall, to the musicians warming their fingers with breath. The cobblestones, damp with dew, echo with the patter of their boots. Behind them come the townsfolk in earnest, bakers with trays of bread, brewers rolling barrels, carpenters carrying planks for temporary stages. The great square, so often a place of trade and talk, becomes something new by mid-morning. Stalls bloom like flowers, draped in cloth of every hue. The smell of roasting nuts drifts across the air, mingling with sweet mead and the sharp tang of cider. A platform is raised near the guild hall where musicians will play, and where later dancers will leap and twirl to cheers from the crowd. Ladders lean against beams as men tie streamers high, their laughter echoing down the streets. Soon the church bell tolls to mark the day's start. Its deep voice rolls across the town, summoning folk from every alley and lane. Farmers who have walked in from nearby fields arrive with baskets of eggs and apples. Washerwomen come with their arms full of linens for sale. The square grows crowded but not hurried. This is a day for leisure and joy, not toil. Smiles pass easily between strangers. Gossip gives way to shared excitement. The mayor arrives with quiet dignity, though his robes are brighter than usual and a wreath of greenery crowns his head. Children follow him at a distance, whispering and laughing. He steps onto the raised platform and offers a blessing for peace, prosperity, and good harvest. His voice is steady but kind, and when he ends, the crowd cheers with simple warmth. A fiddler answers the cheer with a bright trill, and the festival truly begins. Music spills through the square like sunlight. Fiddles, flutes, and a drum or two create a lively tune that invites even the shyest to tap a foot. Dancers begin their steps, first a few young men and women spinning in easy circles, then older couples joining with laughter. Children leap about the edges, clapping and turning until they tumble giggling into the dust. The sound of hands clapping pine adds to the beat, a rhythm that belongs to everyone. Merchants, freed for a day from the usual bargaining, display their finest wares for admiration as much as sale. A potter shows cups painted with bright birds. A smith lays out polished buckles and bells that ring with sweet tones. Beside them, a spice seller has arranged small piles of color, saffron, cinnamon, crushed rose petals. People stop to sniff and marvel, even if they cannot afford such things. The joy lies as much in looking as in buying. Food, too, fills the square. There are meat pies, golden and steaming, skewers of roasted fowl dripping with juice, honey cakes dusted with crushed nuts. A brewer taps the first cask of ale, and foam spills over to delighted cheers. Sweet cider flows for the young, and those who do not drink stronger fare. The smell of sugar and roasting meat weaves with the laughter and music until the whole square seems to breathe to life. Games spring up between the stalls. A ring-toss game with bright painted hoops draws a knot of children. Nearby, two men challenge each other to balance on a narrow beam while the crowd laughs and calls advice. A juggler in a patched coat tosses colored balls high into the air, then knives, then apples, never missing a beat. Each trick earns coins tossed into his hat and shouts of approval. In one corner, a puppet show gathers an eager crowd. The puppets, kings, dragons, clever maids, dance and speak with voices that make children squeal and adults chuckle. The puppeteer hides behind his curtain, but now and then a hand waves in thanks for the applause. When the show ends, the children rush forward to see the wooden figures more closely, marveling at their painted faces and jointed limbs. Near the church steps, a small choir sings ballads of love and bravery. Their voices rise sweet and clear over the hum of the crowd. People pause to listen, some swaying gently, some simply closing their eyes for a moment. Coins clink into a basket left at their feet, though they seem to sing as much for joy as for payment. The music lingers long after they finish, echoing softly among the stone walls. By midday, the square is full to bursting. Sunlight glints on polished buckles and bright ribbons. The air is warm with summer scent, trampled herbs, cider, and baking bread. Old friends meet by chance and embrace. New acquaintances are made over shared tables. For once, even rival guilds set aside pride and sit shoulder to shoulder, drinking to the health of the town. Children dart from game to game, clutching prizes of ribbons, tiny carved animals, or sugar drops. A group of boys tries to imitate the juggler and succeeds in dropping every ball, laughing so hard they to barely stand. Girls practice the dance steps they have watched, holding hands and spinning until they fall in heaps of giggles. A kindly old woman gathers a few of the smallest to tell them a story of the town's founding, her voice soft but full of wonder. Not all is noise and laughter. In quieter corners, lovers steal moments beneath garlands, exchanging shy smiles and whispered hopes. An old couple sits side by side on a bench, content to watch the bustle without joining. A traveling merchant writes a letter at the notary's table, pausing now and then to smile at the distant sound of flutes. The festival makes space for all moods, welcoming both the merry and the reflective. As the afternoon stretches on, contests of skill begin. Archers step up to a line marked on the cobblestones, their bows polished and strings taut. The crowd cheers as arrows thud into straw targets, closer and closer to the painted center. Young men compete in wrestling, locking arms with good-natured grunts while spectators shout advice. Even the mayor laughs as he crowns the winners with simple wreaths. Jugglers give way to fire dancers as the sun begins to dip. Flames twirl and leap, casting bright arcs in the dusky light. Children gasp and clap, and even the most stoic adults break into smiles. The musicians shift to a deeper, more rhythmic tune to match the dancers' movements. Sparks fly harmlessly into the air, glowing and vanishing like fleeting stars. When evening finally comes, the square glows with lanterns strung high between buildings. Their light mingles with the fading day, softening faces and casting long shadows. Tables groan under platters of food, and the air is filled with cheerful noise. Musicians lead one last great dance, drawing everyone, young, old, skilled, clumsy, into a wide circle that spins and laughs under the rising moon. As the dance ends, the mayor steps forward once more to thank all who gathered. His words are brief but warm, wishing safety on travelers and plenty for the year ahead. People raise mugs and cheer. Some sing a refrain from earlier songs. The night feels full and generous, as if the town itself were smiling. Slowly the festival winds down. Families guide sleepy children home, carrying leftover bread wrapped in cloth. Merchants pack their unsold goods with contented sighs, for the day has been kind. Lanterns are snuffed one by one, leaving only a few to light the way for stragglers. The musicians gather their instruments, laughing quietly as they recall missed notes and unexpected dances. The square grows still at last, though confetti of petals and ribbons remains scattered on the stones. The scent of roasted meat and spilled cider lingers in the cooling air. Somewhere, a lone fiddler plays a slow tune as he walks away, the sound fading down an empty street. The festival has ended, but its warmth hangs on like the glow of embers, promising that joy will return again next year. The bell in the tower strikes its slow notes above the roofs, and the town square begins to swell with sound. The morning mist has lifted, and the sun glimmers on the damp cobblestones, drawing out the scent of rain and dust. Merchants have been here since early dawn, spreading their wares on long trestles, unfurling bolts of dyed wool, and arranging baskets of greens and roots. But it is at midday that the market truly comes alive, when every lane seems to flow toward the square, and the voices of the town mingle in a pleasant murmur that rises and falls like the sea. At the edge of the square, a boy drives a cart heavy with cabbages and leeks, his father walking beside him with a hand on the donkey's lead rope. The donkey's hooves clop on the stones, steady and patient, while the boy strains to keep the cart from bumping too wildly. From a nearby window, an older woman shakes out a rag to rid it of flour, sending pale clouds into the sunlit air. She lingers for a moment, resting her arms on the sill to watch the bustle below. The smell of baking bread drifts from a baker's stall, mingled with the sharper tang of pickled fish and the sweetness of honeycomb. Bakers have set out flat loaves scored with deep cuts to let the steam escape, their crusts browned and fragrant. Beside them, small pies filled with minced meat or apples gleam with a glaze of egg and sugar. The baker's apprentice stands on tiptoe behind the counter, eager to hand out warm rolls wrapped in linen. Across the square, a cloth merchant lifts the corner of a bolt of crimson wool to show a customer its weight. His hands are practiced, gentle but quick. He knows how to flick the fabric so the light catches its sheen. Behind him, an apprentice winds lengths of thread onto spools while humming softly to himself. A woman inspects the weave, rubs it between finger and thumb, and shakes her head before moving on toward the linen seller, who has stacked his pale cloth high as a hedge. The market, is it only for buying and selling? It is a place for news, for gossip, for the endless trade of stories that tie a town together. A carpenter tells a brewer about a new wagon he has built for a noble household. A seamstress leans in close to hear word of a distant cousin married at last. Children dart through the legs of grown-ups, laughing, carrying scraps of bread or small pastries bought with a single copper coin. They weave around the heavy baskets of fishmongers, around dogs that curl patiently at their master's feet, tails thumping now and then. At the well in the center of the square, two young women draw up buckets and pause to rest, leaning against the stone rim. They speak quietly of their week. One has been hired to help in the kitchen of a merchant's house. The other has taken in sewing to pay for her younger brother's boots. They are joined by a tanner's wife who dips a rag in the water to wipe her hands before returning to her stall. The well rope creaks as another bucket is lowered, splashing softly below. A herald passes through, his bright tabard catching the light, his voice cutting clear over the hum. He calls for attention and reads a notice from the town council. A new toll on foreign merchants, a reminder of curfew hours, the date of the midsummer fair. Many pause to listen, some grumble, some nod. When he has finished, the herald moves on toward another corner of the square to repeat his news. Near the apothecary's table, glass vials catch the sun in shades of green and amber. Dried herbs hang from cords, rosemary, sage, thyme, and stranger things from far-off lands. The apothecary himself, a narrow man with a careful beard, explains the use of a salve to a mother holding a restless toddler. He speaks in quiet tones, and the child calms as if lulled by the rustle of herbs and the gentle clink of bottles. A troupe of traveling players sets up a small stage against the wall of the Guildhall. They stretch painted cloth behind them to suggest a forest, and one of them strikes a tune on a small lute while another checks the masks. Children begin to gather, drawn by the promise of music and play. A few adults linger as well, smiling as they remember lighter days. The players bow and begin their tale. A foolish knight, a clever maiden, a talking raven who knows everyone's secrets. Laughter soon bubbles up, spilling through the square. The smith arrives late, his arms bare and sooty, pushing a barrow filled with iron tools and cooking pots. He sets them out with little ceremony, for his customers already know his work. A farmer hefts a new hoe, tests its weight, and nods with satisfaction. The smith wipes his brow with a rag and exchanges a few words with a passing guard before returning to his wares. His hammer hangs at his side like a badge of his craft. Under a canopy of faded blue cloth, a spice merchant sits cross-legged, surrounded by small wooden boxes. He opens one to reveal saffron threads the color of firelight, another to show black peppercorns glossy as beads. The smell is rich and warm, promising distant lands and long journeys. Few can afford such luxuries, but many stop to look, to inhale, to ask the price, just to dream a little. The merchant smiles knowingly. Part of his trade is selling wonder itself. A fiddler roams between the stalls, his tune bright and skipping. Children dance, clapping their hands, while a pair of young men try to match the steps. A farmer's wife sways in time as she inspects a string of onions. Coins jingle into the fiddler's cup, and he bows with a flourish before moving on. His melody lingers in the air long after he is gone. The church bell rings once, a slow note reminding all of the passing hour. Some pause to cross themselves, others simply glance toward the spire that rises above the town's roofs. The priest's boy runs an errand through the market, a folded note in his hand and his face serious despite the temptations around him. He passes the sweet seller's table without so much as a glance, though the sugared almonds sparkle invitingly in the sun. Near the edge of the square, a woman sells candles, molded in many shapes. Simple tapers for the poor, stout altar candles for the chapel, small carved animals for children. Beeswax fills the air with its warm, honeyed scent. She trims wicks with a small knife as she talks to a neighbor about the coming harvest. Now and then she counts her coins, slipping them into a pouch tied at her waist. In the shadow of the Guildhall, a notary sits at a small desk, quill in hand. He writes deeds and letters for those who cannot hold a pen themselves. Farmers bring him notes to deliver to distant kin. Merchants ask him to set down the terms of a bargain. His ink-stained fingers move steadily, and he pauses now and then to sand the wet script before folding the parchment. A boy waits nearby to run messages for a few coins. As the sun climbs higher, the smells of roasting meat grow stronger. At one stall, a man turns a spit over glowing coals, fat sizzling and dripping down to feed the fire. At another, a woman ladles hot stew into clay bowls, its steam fragrant with herbs. Hungry townsfolk cluster close, exchanging coins for warm food. Some carry it away. Others sit on the low steps of the fountain to eat and watch the passing throng. Beyond the food sellers, a potter has arranged his work in neat rows. Jugs, bowls, and cups glazed in earthy greens and browns. He holds one up to the light, explaining how it was fired, how strong the clay must be to withstand both heat and use. A young couple debates which jug would best suit their small kitchen, laughing at their own indecision. The potter waits patiently, used to the way people dream about his wares before choosing. At a corner stall, a falconer has brought two birds, hooded and calm on their perches. Their feathers gleam bronze and gold, their talons curled. He explains their training to an eager crowd, how they learn to return, how they hunt. A nobleman's steward lingers to ask the price of a fine glove, and the falconer bows low, speaking with care. The birds shift and ruffle, though they make no sound. A young couple arrives with a baby swaddled tight against the midday chill. They stop to buy a ribbon from a peddler, then move on toward the fountain, where they sit for a moment in the shade. The baby stirs and fusses, and the mother hums softly, lost for a moment in her own world even as the market hums around her. An old woman passing by smiles, nods, and continues on her way with her basket of onions. As the hours pass, the noise ebbs and flows like a tide. At times it seems to swell until every voice is one, then it thins as buyers wander away with their goods. A gust of wind lifts the smell of spices and smoke, carrying it down the narrow streets beyond the square. Somewhere a dog barks, somewhere else a door slams shut. Yet still the heart of the town beats steady here, in trade and talk and shared life. Late in the day, the players end their show with a bow, and coins rattle into their wooden bowl. The fiddler has long since moved on, but someone hums his tune. The baker's apprentice is packing away the last of the pies, and the potter is wrapping purchases in scraps of straw. Sunlight slides across the square, turning the stone warm gold before it begins to sink behind the roofs. A few merchants will stay until dusk, hoping for last sales. Others are already folding their tables, stacking crates, and calling to their beasts of burden. The donkey that brought the cabbage cart is led homeward now, its load lighter, but its hooves no less steady. Children linger to watch the emptying stalls, reluctant to let the day's bustle end. As shadows lengthen, a quiet settles over the square. It is his silence, but the gentler murmur of people returning to their homes. A sweep of straw clears the day's dust from the cobbles. The well rope is coiled neatly once more. Somewhere a door closes with a thud, and the smell of supper begins to rise from hearths all around. By the time the bell in the tower strikes again, the market has become only a memory of color, noise, and scent. Yet tomorrow it will bloom anew, as it always has and always will, a heart that beats for all who dwell within these walls. For now, though, the square belongs to the hush of evening, the last traders trundling home, and the faint music of a day well lived. At the end of a long, twisting lane, where rainwater gathers in shallow puddles and the scent of wood smoke hangs low, stands a tavern with a crooked signboard. The painted mug upon it is faded, but the glow spilling from its windows is warm and inviting. Its walls are half timber and half stone, darkened by years of smoke. Yet the door swings easily on its worn hinges. Travelers know it by reputation, a place where the fire burns late, the ale is steady, and the gossip of the town flows as freely as the drink. Inside, the air greets all who enter with a rush of warmth and the mingled smells of roasting meat, spice cider, and the faint tang of old oak casks. The hearth takes pride of place, wide enough for 3 grown men to stand within. Logs hiss as they burn, flames licking high to chase away the chill. Above the mantel, herbs hang, drying sage, rosemary, thyme, adding a pleasant sharpness to the smoky air. A blackened kettle simmers on the hearthstone, steam curling lazily toward the rafters. Rough-hewn tables fill the main room, their surfaces scarred by countless tankards and dice games. Lanterns hang from beams above, their light soft and golden. Against one wall stretches a long counter where the innkeeper works. A barrel-chested man with quick eyes and a talent for remembering every face and favorite drink. He moves with easy rhythm, filling mugs from a cask, slicing bread, counting coins without missing a word of conversation. Tonight the tavern is busy, but not rowdy. Farmers sit with boots stretched toward the fire, talking of weather and harvest while nursing dark ale. A pair of merchants play cards quietly in a corner, their expressions mild but their eyes sharp. Near the hearth, an old soldier leans on his staff, telling a tale of the road to anyone who will listen, his voice low and steady as a drum. A dog sleeps at his feet, twitching now and then as it dreams. In the farthest nook sits a weaver, his hands never still even at rest. He knots a cord absent-mindedly, listening to the talk around him. Beside him, 2 washerwomen share a platter of cheese and dried fruit, laughing softly at a shared memory. A young apprentice from the guild hall hovers near the counter, eager for stories yet shy of speaking. The innkeeper tosses him a kindly word now and then, coaxing him to stay. The fire crackles, and its light paints the low ceiling in wavering gold. Shadows move gently over the stone floor as patrons shift in their seats. The warmth seeps into boots and cloaks, drawing sighs of contentment from those who have spent the day in the damp streets. It is the sort of place where hours pass unnoticed, each moment softened by the comfort of company and a steady flame. A young maid tends the room, balancing a tray with practiced grace. She carries mugs of cider and bowls of stew, smiling easily as she weaves between benches. Now and then she pauses to hear a jest or accept a coin slipped with thanks. Her apron is clean but patched, her hair bound in a simple kerchief. Though she moves quickly, she never seems hurried, her calm presence a quiet balm. Near the hearth, the old soldier begins a new story, the one of his first winter on the road. His listeners lean closer as he speaks of snowdrifts high as a man, of wolves whose eyes glimmered in the dark, and of a lone chapel where he found shelter and bread. He does not embellish. His words are plain but carry weight. Even the merchants pause their game to listen for a while before turning back to their cards. From the kitchen comes the smell of meat turning slowly on a spit. The cook, a broad woman with a quick laugh, works unseen, but makes her presence known by the clatter of pots and the occasional song. She sings of the river and its fish, of fields in summer, of lovers waiting by the gate. Her voice is warm and untrained, but it fills the room with easy joy. The door opens with a gust of cool air, and a small group of travelers enters, stamping mud from their boots. They are road-worn, cloaks damp, cheeks flushed with cold. The innkeeper greets them with nods and a ready mug of ale each, asking softly about their journey. Soon they are settled near the fire, hands stretched to the warmth, grateful sighs escaping as heat returns to chilled fingers. One traveler, a young woman with bright eyes and a lute strapped across her back, soon proves to be a singer. At the urging of the crowd, she tunes her strings and begins a gentle song. Her voice is clear but soothing, a melody of wandering roads and quiet nights under the stars. Conversation softens around her, though no one falls fully silent. The music simply becomes another thread in the tavern's comforting tapestry. Children are rare guests here at night, but a few linger this evening, perched sleepily beside their parents. One boy curls on a bench wrapped in a cloak, eyes half shut, lulled by the hum of voices and the flicker of firelight. Another leans against his mother's side, too tired to eat the last of his bread but unwilling to leave the warmth. The innkeeper notices and brings a mug of warm milk, earning a grateful nod from the weary mother. The merchants finish their game at last, one laughing softly as he slides a small pile of coins across the table to the other. They part without rancor, both satisfied to have passed the evening in friendly contest. The weaver sets aside his cord and accepts a drink from the soldier, thanking him for the tale. The washerwomen rise to leave, pulling their shawls tight before stepping out into the night, their laughter fading as the door swings shut behind them. Late in the night, the inn grows quieter. Only the fire keeps its lively crackle, and its light pools golden over the worn floor. The travelers doze where they sit, too weary to climb the stairs to their rented rooms just yet. The innkeeper wipes the counter with a damp cloth, humming softly. The maid stacks empty bowls and cups with care, her movements unhurried. At last the singer with the lute packs away her instrument, smiling as she counts the few coins tossed her way. She thanks the innkeeper and promises to return if the road brings her this way again. The old soldier, leaning heavier on his staff now, bids good night to those who remain, and shuffles off toward the small room he lets above the kitchen. The innkeeper steps to the hearth, prodding the logs so that the fire will hold a little longer through the night. He pauses for a moment, gazing into the flames as if gathering his own quiet thoughts. Outside, the lane is dark and still, the town gone to sleep. Inside, warmth and calm linger like a deep breath held in comfort. When at last the last guest has climbed the stairs and the chairs are set upon the tables, the innkeeper banks the fire and snuffs the lanterns one by one. The great room falls into shadow, but the scent of wood smoke and roasted meat remains, mingled with the ghost of laughter and song. Tomorrow will bring new travelers, new tales, but tonight the tavern rests, wrapped in its own quiet story.